Hi, I've missed you. Missed you all a lot. Sorry, I don't normally wear these, but we have guests over and things are kind of loud here, and the noise canceling headphones will prevent me from being distracted from them so I can focus on you. It's been a long, month and a half now? We started with the August complex fire, started covering that, following that, bringing you forest closures, explaining the forest closures, bringing you video from within the forest closures. Let me block myself so I don't get distracted and I stare right at you. Um, and then recently the not the August, all these fires start to blend together after all these years. The glass fire managed to reach Santa Rosa. Um, that was an interesting evening for me. I don't know what possessed me, but for some reason, so it starts off with I had to drive my son to Petaluma, where he's been staying with my mom, who's been helping him do his distance learning. She's a retired school teacher. It works out perfect that way. You just need to be quieter because I can hear a delay. Um, Before we left, though, I decided to grab the scanners. I grabbed my press pass. I grabbed the cameras, and I took off, and that was around 7 o'clock. I left Windsor and headed towards Petaluma. And then I think it was like halfway there, around 7:15, maybe 7:30, I heard the call come across the scanner that was it 9550 St. Helena Road, Santa Rosa. There's a report of fire. So, well, that's kind of weird. So I had my son with me, who's only 13. So we decided to, well, let's go check it out. So my son mapped it on my phone, and we headed that direction. We were in our Subaru, so not terribly well equipped. I was in shorts and flip-flops too, so I knew we weren't going to go to the fire because I had my minor son with me, minor being under 18, and I was in flip-flops and shorts, totally inappropriate for the situation. I thought, well, maybe we could get somewhere we get some pictures and see what's going on. So we went out Calistoga Road to, I think it's Gates, and we didn't see anything. So we turned around and we thought, well, I don't see anything. Grandma's going to be upset if we're too late, so let's head back down to Petaluma. So I headed down to Petaluma. I helped my mom fix up her room, do some stuff, and I went back to that exact same spot. Well, actually, no, not the exact same spot. I went back on Calistoga Road to where it apexes from Santa Rosa, leaving Santa Rosa, and drops back down into the valley, like you're heading towards St. Helena Road. And I got just on the other side, and the whole, not hillside, but the whole, let's say, ridge line was lit up in a glow and thick smoke. So I found a spot that I could get completely off the road. I pulled over and I grabbed the camera. I put on my press vest, my press pass. I grabbed the scanners and I set up the camera on a fence post and just hit record. And then it was only a few moments later. You can see it in the video I just put out last night. Fire engine after fire engine after fire engine. There must have been 20 or 30 of them went past me. And then dozers started going past me. Meanwhile, I'm watching the smoke get thicker and the orange glow get brighter and brighter and brighter. Fortunately, the wind was to my back, facing the fire, so I felt pretty safe, even though I was still in my flip-flops and shorts. So I stood there for a while, recording. Unfortunately, though, the cameras I brought really didn't pick up the fire when they were sitting on the fence post. I managed to capture the fire trucks and the bulldozers and all of that. That was pretty cool. But after about 45 minutes or so, the wind shifted. Now it's coming at me. And by that time, I was starting to see flames crest the top of the mountain. And I guess I'm not sure, other than vaporize a full-size tree. Pretty impressive to watch a big tree just go poof. It's done. So when the wind shifted, I decided it was time to go. So I left. And I headed up. I figured the next best place, let's go to Fountain Grove Parkway. It's really high up. I'll get a really good view. I'll be able to see down into the valley and back up the other hillside, and let's just see what develops. I got halfway up Fountain Grove Parkway heading away from Bennett Valley and in towards Santa Rosa, and I discovered a 80s Ford diesel on the side of the road. So fortunately I had strap, so I used our truck. I pulled him up out of the road because at that point it was a constant flow of traffic and he was impeding the flow of traffic. So pulled him out of the way, grabbed my cameras, grabbed my scanners, and I hiked over to where there were a lot of cars, but fortunately after I'd pulled that guy in, I found a spot where I could park legally, and I was off the road and out of the way. Hiked down this bluff, and it turned out to be about 5 or 6 people, and then, I don't know, I think I was around 9, 10 o'clock, the glow wasn't that big. There were some ring fires. You could kind of see it coming up over the crest. It wasn't too impressive yet. But by about midnight, things really started to change. Then we were starting to see, I don't know, it was about 10, 15 people with me. We started to see a line and probably 20, maybe 30 different flashing lights all heading down Calistoga Road. Next thing we know, we start hearing the high-low sirens. Doo, 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 doo. That's a pretty scary sound. It's really sobering, really sobering. So I did my best with the DSLR, the equipment I had, to snap some photographs and just hung out with people. And we're watching live streams with other people, talking with other people. Some of the people with me lived down in the valley below where the fire was approaching. And it was, anyway, I don't have the words to describe that. How are you supposed to describe what the feeling's like when the person standing next to you is watching the fire approach their house? So I stayed there till about 3 a.m. And by then I was starting to get really tired. And even though we had heard several propane tanks go off, one of which, when it went off, it rolled through the valley like that, you know, a real big clap of thunder just rolls on for a long time. This explosion was that big. So even with all that going on, I was having trouble keeping my eyes open, and I didn't want to crash on the way home. So I opted to head home. And then the next evening, I decided to head out and take the press pass and go in there. Where by then things had calmed down. This was not post-burn per se, but post-burn. The flames were nowhere near as active. We went in through Calistoga Road and went to about St. Helena Road, and that's where we turned around. And within there, we saw some pretty interesting stuff. A lot of personnel of all types, whether it's sheriff, fire department. Saw some flames. Things were pretty interesting. Fortunately, though, after going to the complex fire and realizing that's in the Mendocino National Forest, that the camera gear we had wasn't quite cutting it. So we went ahead and splurged, and we bought some new gear. And now my simple little Osmo isn't so simple anymore. It's got a nice aluminum case. I've got a Lume Cube light that's got 9 different settings, and it's pretty bright. And then we bought a Rode microphone, shotgun mic, to get better audio. Quickly thereafter, realized I needed an adapter to make that go into the Osmo to pick up the audio. And then I needed a selfie stick. So I went on and on and on and on. But I managed to get some really cool video. I don't know if you've seen the video I put out. I think it was last night. But if you haven't, you should check it out. It's pretty cool. These little scanners have turned out to be invaluable. This one's actually tethered because I bought external antennas. This one actually runs out the window behind me and it's up on my roof. Because the last few days I've been listening to a lot of the fire activity's been over in other side of Mount St. Helena. It's harder to pick up over here. So with the external antenna, I can pick that up. I have 2 of them on the truck also, so that I can pick up everything possible. The one thing I'd recommend, if you have these scanners, these radios, get an external antenna. You'll get much better reception. If you lean this little antenna up against, say, your GPS or car stereo, your signal goes to crap. It's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad. I also discovered with these radios, and I know some of you have seen my live stream, and I know a few of you that are watching have these same radios. There's a function in here called transmit dual receive. If you change that to on, you can listen to 2 different frequencies and tell it which one you want to broadcast on. Well, in this case, I don't want to broadcast because I'm listening to CAL FIRE, Redcom, Air to Ground, the Sheriff's Department, all of them. So I changed the transmit power down to low just in case I keyed the mic. Also, the thing that's made a big difference is these longer whip antennas. Absolutely invaluable. Today I saw a post about what are you using for scanner apps? Scanner apps are great. A lot of them will let you listen to multiple frequencies at a time. And that's fabulous because you don't have to figure out, let's see here, what frequency things are on. This one here is on 151.355 and 151.392. You don't have to worry about that stuff. You just choose your frequency and you listen. What if your cell phone tower goes down? One of the things I heard that night was they were calling a sheriff deputy. Can you call us on the phone? I can't. I don't have any battery and battery's dead. With these, I carry an extra battery, but also in my understanding of fire in the last few years, repeater antennas are a super high priority. And when I mean repeater antennas, I'm talking about like ham radio repeaters. The repeaters CAL FIRE uses, the sheriff uses, the Forest Service uses, all of those. Cell phone booster or cell phone repeaters or whatever, towers, I guess they're called, they're not a high priority. To me, this 40, 50, 60, 70 bucks, that's invaluable. If any of you want to know, I have a cheat sheet that's probably 4 or 5 pages long. I even have the International Space Station frequency if you want to listen in on them. I'll share it with you. It's all public information you can find on the internet. The day after the glass fire broke out, we received our Nomex 3A fireproof clothing. This is very similar to what the firemen are wearing. It's, I think, flame resistant to like 800 degrees or something like that. By then, I'm char. I'm done. So I'm heading in there with full gear. I'm wearing a helmet, setting myself apart from the rest, and trying to stay safe. When I'm going in there, I'm also bringing our 3/4 ton diesel truck, a chainsaw, chain, strap, in case a tree falls down. I heard it countless times. When I drive in and go to a spot, park, and video, I can hear a tree fall down. And 10 minutes later, you hear another tree fall down. On the way in, you would notice the road was fine. On the way back out, you'd notice another tree had fallen. Fortunately, though, when I went through there, I never had to cut up a tree. Somebody had already beaten me to it and cut it up and gotten it out of the way. So that was good. I'm carrying food and water for a couple of days, just in case something happens. But man, the amount of area that got burned in the last few days is just unfathomable and unreal. I went over the grade I left Windsor today and went into Middletown. I've been all the way from Calistoga on, was it Springwater Road to St. Helena, where it turns into St. Helena Road, down to Calistoga Road. I've been up Gates Road. I've been over into, was it Sugarloaf Ridge? I've been all over the place. And I can't thank my supporters enough, because without you, I couldn't have brought the amount of content that I have to everybody. My phone is blowing up all day long with comments of thank you and tags from other people and more thank yous. And it's flattering. And so far, not a single negative comment. And that is awesome, because I'm trying to do my best to stay out of the way and bring good content that can inform you guys of what's going on. Now, in this case, because I don't go to the active burn, that's not my forte. I'm going to post burn. I'm live streaming as I drive down different roads. The only sad part is that unfortunately, I think I've been the bearer of bad news to at least 15, maybe 20 people, that your home is no longer standing. That would definitely weigh on me. But when I get a message from a person that said, hey, I watched your live stream, now I'm not sitting on pins and needles. Now I have some closure. I know what to do going forward. Some of them have also commented, hey, I can beat everybody else to the rental market before prices go up, which they're not supposed to, because it's price gouging. So that's a relief. Without that, I probably would have stopped and probably had some serious PTSD. But getting those messages has definitely relieved me quite a bit. Forgive me, as tonight I don't really have a script. Sometimes I go over notes. A lot of times, as you know, I have pictures, I have video. Tonight was just a chance for me to get back to you and say, hey, it's been a while. I realize I haven't kept up on my live streams, and I miss you, and I hope you miss me too. The other thing I want to point out is that you'll notice that I've let my salt and pepper start to show through. Because of all the fires, I haven't had a chance to do my chin. Normally on October 1st, it goes pink. We're on October 5th, and I haven't done it. So tomorrow, I'm going to go to the store and get some bleach, and it's going pink. So when you see me next time, it's going to be pink. So yeah, man, there's so much to think about, so much to process. It's been unreal. I do know that, I drove through St. Helena Road today, and the crews were working very actively to clear the falling trees, or not falling trees, but the trees that could potentially fall that have been compromised by fire. I've watched countless very large trees get cut down, fall across the road, and I just get out and hang out and talk to everybody while they clear it out of the way. One of the strangest things I saw, though, was, I think it was Thursday. I was at one of those roadblocks where they were cutting up a tree, and I could see this column of heat. You know, when you look over, you can just see heat and the smoke coming up. That's really weird. I'm going to head over there and check that out. So I grabbed the Osmo, and I went over there, and you can see it in the video. It turned out to be a hole that was about 3 feet in diameter. The first one was at least 15 feet deep and still very actively burning. With that one, I could tell it was a tree because the tree was leaning over. The trunk had mostly burned, but the tree had fallen over. Yeah, St. Helena Road. That's been there a few times now. But then the one that was maybe 20 feet away, I couldn't see the bottom. So I found a way that I could brace myself against a tree and hold on in case the hole gave way, and stuck the selfie stick over the hole. And you can hear it in the video. I'm talking to the guy that's running the roadblock. It's probably 20 to 25 feet deep and still burning. And it's a 2 to 3 foot wide hole. Like, but this one, there's no trees in sight. There's no stump. So what caused it? And it's a perfectly smooth edge going all the way down. There's no root holes going out on the way down, whereas the one that I'd seen prior, at the bottom, you could see the buttressing roots going out. So like it had been backfilled over the years, and then the roots had been covered up. So that was really impressive, really, really impressive. I think it was last Thursday. Things over in St. Helena seemed like they just were not doing so well. You know, it jumped the road, it jumped dozer lines. It was a constant flow of sadness on the radio. Is what it is. But I went back in there, I think it was Saturday. I went through Calistoga and part of St. Helena. If you want to see those, they're all public on my Facebook page. You can check them all out. They're just unedited, driving down the road. You can check it out for yourself. It burned on both sides. The only thing that saved a lot of these homes was that they were maintained. There's not a lot of organic material on the ground to burn. So it's a form of protection. If you want to keep your house safe, grow vineyards around your home. I did meet some homeowners though, and I've learned a few things in the last few days. The ones their houses saved, it's sometimes the little things and sometimes it's the big things. The big things being like a metal roof, stucco siding. One couple I met had those, and they also had metal framing. Their house survived, but with significant smoke damage. They had double pane windows, but because the fire got so close and so hot, the windows popped, and that's when the smoke came in. They were lucky enough, though, that there was a fire crew in the neighborhood, and they came in the house and kept the embers from igniting, say, the carpet and the books. Because my understanding is the fire front comes through, pops the windows and whatnot, and then you start getting the embers that fall in there. And the embers, which, as we know, can smolder for quite a while, because right now they're in mop-up phase in a lot of this area, and that can go on for weeks and sometimes months while they wait for things to go up. You find a little ember that'll smolder for a week, and then a gust of wind will hit it and it'll go up. I heard 2 trees today in St. Helena on the radio. There's a tree engulfed in flames at such and such road. It had an ember that had smoldered, the humidity was just right, the wind was just right, and up went the tree. So that was a bummer. I met another gentleman, though, that had triple pane windows, and his windows survived. And he was down Cougar Lane at the very top, and he was the only one on the entire road to survive. Granted, I didn't witness it with my own eyes because the bridge at the bottom, all the metal framing was still there, but the wood planks, they were done. They were gone. So I couldn't go in there, but I talked to him and a CAL FIRE inspector, I guess he was, and his windows survived and his house survived. The other thing that, so a little thing that can save people that I've been learning is instead of getting fiberglass window screens, get metal screens. The fiberglass will trap the embers, start to smolder, and most windows these days are made of vinyl. Well, vinyl's plastic. So the ember burns the screen starts to spread, and then it hits the vinyl, and then the whole window's gone, and now you've got embers inside the house that smolder, turn into flames. Another thing is, around here, cleaning out your rain gutters is not a once a year chore. It's a multiple times a year chore. You do it many times. I've already done it 3 times this year, and rain hasn't even come. You get the leaves and other organic material down inside there, and you've got another spot where an ember can land and smolder and turn into a flame. Another small one is spider webs and other things underneath the eaves of your house where the wind can circulate and grab an ember and hold it, and also that can smolder. Another thing that I've heard, I forget the exact analogy that was told to me today. How do I wish I could paraphrase this or make an exact quote, but when the fires come through and you've put out all the hot spots you can find, generally, some people will go off and, oh, this is over, we're done, we've beaten this, let's go get a beer and celebrate. They come back and their house isn't there. Just because you've gotten what you think is all the embers and hot spots, it's not over. Stick around. And I'm not encouraging you to stick around during an evacuation, because there's a lot of training that goes on with this stuff and having the right clothing. I mean, just because I have the right clothing doesn't mean I'm safe and exempt, but it's a good idea to have it. And it's who's to say, or who's to stay and who's to not stay, who's qualified and who's not qualified, that's not for me to judge. That's not what I'm here for. I'm just sharing information. I met some gentlemen that up on Gates Road. I didn't see anything burn there, but that is a narrow little road. I wouldn't want to have to escape a fire there. I'm driving a 3/4 ton diesel truck, and I'm watching like inches on either side of my mirrors as I go by. But they were there, and it burned right behind their house. And when they talked to me about it, they were so nonchalant about the whole thing, like it was no big deal. No big deal at all. So I don't know if that's bravery or if they were just that smart, or I don't know. But I tell you, if I was seeing 200-foot trees burning right behind my house, I've got insurance, I'm out. I'm sorry, I'm out. Even without insurance, my life is not replaceable. I'm gone. I'm out. So it's been interesting times, that's for sure. I've met a few individuals from the Mendocino National Forest. I've met some individuals from the sheriff's departments, the police departments, the CHP, all kinds of people. And I keep hearing a lot about time to manage the forest. Well, what exactly does manage the forest mean? The research that I have done in the last, couple of months about forest management and whatnot, and again, I'm not an ecologist, I'm not college educated on any of this. This is just stuff that I've absorbed, picked up, researched, talked to, heard, all that kind of stuff. If we look back in time to the big burn of 1910, the attitude of society changed greatly from that fire and then on. From then on, putting out fires became priority number 1. Just put them out. Put them out. If you look at photographs of the forest around that time, you'll notice patches of the forest that are nowhere near as dense. They're not that dense. There's, it's open space, some trees, maybe some grass patches, but it's all unique and different. And because of that, fire wasn't able to spread like it does today. Because of this, forgive me for saying it, mentality of put it out, put it out, put it out. Look at what our forests have become. Super, super dense, large. Some would say overgrown. Again, I'm not going to define overgrown. Forgive me as they're not well organized here, but I'm still learning. And so when the August complex fire broke out, they were already doing selective logging in the forest. They were going through and thinning out trees. That's great. So my understanding of forest management is it's not just the Forest Service. For me, I don't blame the Forest Service for lack of doing their job. I blame myself as one. How about I just take all the credit? Because I'm not going to point the finger at anybody else. Nobody else. I'm going to take all the credit. In one regard, that's because of who I voted for and that person's priorities. That person I voted for, their priority wasn't forest management. Maybe it's time we start thinking about that. When I start hearing, our president talk about cutting funding because of the fires and we're not doing anything about it, why not offer, instead of cutting the funding, why not offer funding for research on the best means of managing our forests? The other thing I've learned in the research I've done is smoke from a prescribed burn is considered an unnecessary nuisance by the EPA. So, with that in mind, to do a prescribed burn for an area, let's use the Forest Service as an example. Wind, temperature, humidity, time of day, but also parts per million of the smoke all have to be factored in. Now, you start stacking all those things up, you almost limit it to not being possible to do these things. So, and we brought that on them. We don't like the smoke. It's an unnecessary nuisance. We don't want it. Well, now they have so much difficulty to manage the forest, they can't do it. The other thing that was pointed out to me is research and count the number of logging companies still remaining that are willing to go into the forest and do this logging, whether it be selective logging or clear cutting. Now, when I say clear cutting, I don't mean just going to wipe it out. I'm talking about sections of the forest that are infected with beetles, like bark beetles, or fungus, where the trees are already dead. You've got fuels, but you've also got potential wood source that could be used to build homes or whatnot, or furniture. Maybe it's too compromised by the beetles, and it makes really neat furniture. The wood that I've seen where it's got beetle holes in it looks really neat. So maybe it is clear cutting those sections. But with that comes the responsibility of all the permits, the rules, the regulations, but then also the reconstruction of the roads, erosion management and control. So we've put all of this pressure and red tape on these entities to make it virtually impossible for them to manage the forest. So forgive me if I take the responsibility for the Forest Service not being able to manage the forest and not put any blame on them whatsoever. One of my favorite places to camp that I just learned about now is Board Tree Campground. I have stayed there in July and was able to have making sure everything's okay here. I was able to have a fire in July. There's a reason for that. It's because the Forest Service had gone up there and trimmed the trees up really high, gotten rid of all the organic material, or combustible materials on the ground, had moved them aside and made piles, and had been actively every year going into the winter time and burning those piles. Made roads that go around the campground to make fire breaks, and there was also a CAL FIRE station not far away. So that's perfect management. But that doesn't come with having to worry about, your parts per million of the smoke coming off or the burning of whatnot. So personally, when I start thinking about forest management, I'm going to start taking it upon myself to see, is this person I'm voting for even care about the forest? Are they thinking about forest management? If the Forest Service wants to do a prescribed burn, I'm not saying controlled burn, prescribed burn, managed burns. When I say managed burns, let's say a fire breaks out somewhere. Instead of just extinguishing it, if it's possible, why not try to manage that fire? Manage meaning like steer it and influence it. Get it to burn all the fuels on the ground, like the stuff that some would call ladder fuels, some of the grasses, the dead branches, so that when a fire does break out again, it stays on the ground. Again, a managed burn. And if we can continue to do those, my understanding is we won't have these fires like we are now. We're at what? Over 4 million acres so far this year? And we were at what, like 1.5, maybe 2 last year? I'm speechless. I'm absolutely speechless. I watched, what was it, Skyhawk Mountain? I watched that fire travel down in a matter of hours, all the way from one side of the ridge, you can't see my hand, from one side of the ridge where I couldn't even see it, come up over the ridge and come down into the valley and almost touch some of the houses. I don't know the roads exactly, but you got Calistoga Road, you got some neighborhoods, and then you've got the hillside. It burned down to those homes. It did burn a few of those homes. And when driving through there, fire science to me is really, really intriguing. When I drive through and all the houses are fine, but then you drive down one street and then there's 3 of them burned right in a row. And then you drive a little more and there's 1 burned. Then you drive some more and there's nothing burned. What was the difference between those houses? Did one have leaves in the rain gutter? Did one have plastic screens? Um, who knows what? So I think we've got a lot to talk about. I think we've got a lot of research to do. I think we all have a lot of thinking to do to what are we going to do? Because this is not just me. It's not just the Forest Service. It's all of us. We got to figure out what's going to happen because things are definitely changing. If you go to caltopo.com and you click on, there's a box on the right-hand side that's called Fire History. Zoom out onto the state and take a look. It will go back to, I think it's into the 90s, and it'll show you every single fire. It'll tell you the year and the name of the fire, and you can see how much the state has burned and where. And in some spots, you can see it's, burned multiple times. It's sad. But some of this, it seems like, and I'm going to emphasize the seems like, because I'm not a fire science and management expert, seems like could be prevented. But I don't want to prevent too much of it because there is this thing called serotiny. Serotiny is, we have these fir trees, pine trees, they have cones that are serotinous cones. And then we also have, I forget the other name, but basically non-serotinous cones. The ones that drop, the squirrels will get them and they pop open on the ground all the time. But every once in a while, if you've been walking along and you found a pine cone or a fir cone and it's still sealed tight, I mean, it's like a rock. There's a reason for that. Those are serotinous cones. For those to open, take very specific conditions. Temperature, humidity, time of year, lots of things. Some of them, though, require being baked in a fire, meaning a fire has to come through to open those up. Fire will come through, open some of the canopy up, get rid of some of the invasive species, get rid of some of the lower growth plants, and then boom, those serotinous cones open. When I was a kid, I don't know my age, let's just say 10. It's an easy number to go with. My dad brought one home. Now, I knew nothing about serotinous cones, but we were in our living room and we had a fire going in the fireplace, and that was, what, 30-something years ago, and all of a sudden I heard this pow! And I look over, and the pine cone that was hanging on the wall is now wide open, and there's seeds all over the ground. The conditions were just right. The temperature and the humidity, and that pine cone opened and spread its seeds everywhere, and it was loud. If you type it up on Google, you can actually hear some of them. I found a few videos where one person was standing underneath a tree at just the right time, and you could hear him raining down. In that case, that tree had found that it was just the right time of day, humidity, and everything else. So fire needs to happen. We need to allow it to happen, and we don't need to make it public enemy number one. We need to start managing these fires. Start not controlling, managing. We need to start allowing logging companies to go in there and make it easier for them and a little more profitable so they're willing to. Get rid of some of this red tape. Let's start opening it up and allowing it to happen. What do we really need these dead trees for that are dead from pine beetles? What do we need the ones that are dead, the oak trees that are dead from sudden oak death or Phytophthora, armillaria? We don't need them. Allow them to come in and remove those trees. Maybe we have to find a compromise where maybe we have to pick up some of the tab of restoring the roads and erosion control, or maybe they just have to go to different sections where the landscape itself will act as erosion control. Something has to happen. I don't know if you've looked at the Mendocino National Forest burn map in the last while, but I stopped keeping track at close to 50% of it is gone. Last time I looked at the map, it looked like everything north of Pillsbury was pretty much in the burn zone. And when we say burn zone, that doesn't mean it's all gone. When you look at the burn map and it's outlined in, say, yellow, and it says, okay, well, all of this burned inside here, not all of it did burn. I have photographs and I have video where you'll have things that are called green islands, where for some reason the fire went around those. Traveling up FH7 from I-5, there were spots that were actually, so here's an example. If you watch the Rattlesnake Memorial video that we just launched with the great thanks to Overland Family Man, Daniel Dempsey, for doing the voiceover. Good job. That hillside looks like somebody went through it not only with a chainsaw, but a leaf blower. It is clean. The fire came through there with such ferocity, the wind. There's not even ash on the ground. But yet when I drive further up into the mountains, I drove past sections where there were still leaves blowing on the ground like nothing had ever happened. We got to Plaskett Meadows, and part of the meadow had burned, part of the forest had burned. But if you look around, part of it had burned. Some of the trees were completely gone. Some of them were still there and untouched. You can see that video on this channel. Within the description down below, you'll find a link to my 500px where I posted a whole lot of pictures. You can see some of those. We all know, well, those of us that have watched the maps have seen that the fire has come down Whole Mountain at Lake Pillsbury. But when you're standing at the airstrip at the bottom, facing the shooting range and looking up at Whole Mountain, you can actually see one ridge that's still green. So a green island. So just because you look at a burn map, don't assume that your house is gone. Don't assume the forest is gone. But it will be a while, unfortunately, until we can get back up in there. They have to do what's called mop up. They have to look for all those embers that are hidden in a stump somewhere. They have to remove those and put those out. They have to look for the trees that have been compromised and could fall over when you're driving through. We saw quite a few of those where it would be a tree that was 2 or 3 feet in diameter, several hundred feet tall, and right where the trunk meets the dirt, there's smoke pumping out of it. That tree is coming down. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And because of everybody in society today is so sue happy, if that tree comes down on them, the Forest Service is going to get sued. Someone's going to get sued. Ridiculous. Time to start maybe absorbing some of our own responsibility, and maybe they'll open things up sooner. If it were possible, I'll sign whatever waiver you want. I accept full responsibility. If a tree falls in front of me, it's my problem. I'll get out of the way. If a tree falls on my truck, my insurance won't cover it, my problem. I accept full responsibility. There's a lot of things we need to start thinking about differently. And I'm not here to rant and rave and blame anybody. Again, I'm blaming myself for absolutely everything. I should have voted for somebody else that had more priorities. I've never complained about the smoke, but again, I'm going to take the blame. I'm going to take the heat. So I'm planting seeds in your mind right now that I hope that you will take it upon yourself to maybe water those seeds a little bit and maybe change your mindset or learn a little bit more so you can educate yourself and decide what is important to you and what does work and what is the best route. Do you mind the smoke from a prescribed burn? I don't. I'd much rather have that. I think it's time that politicians start thinking about ways to manage the forest and allow others to manage the forest without as much burden as they've got. What's happening is sad. I've met countless people that have lost their homes. I've been actively involved in fires since the Valley Fire. That was the first one where I headed into that one because I have family down in there. It's just before Middletown on this side. I'm in Windsor. So coming down the grade, it would be between the grade and Middletown. Forgive me, as I don't know that area very well. I went in there before they blocked off the road, and I stayed there for a while. We loaded up, because I had a full-size truck at the time with a long bed. We filled up the truck, we filled up the cab, filled up their cars, and we just waited and hung out for a while to see what would happen. At that point, they were doing construction on the grade, on the Middletown side. And because of that, it was only one lane. And they have one of those traffic lights that was timed, so it's like 2 minutes one direction, 2 minutes the other direction, 2 minutes this way, 2 minutes that way. And what that ended up causing was no one was coming in, but everyone was trying to leave. The backup ended up going from part of the way up, or all the way from that construction, which is part of the way up 29, all the way into Middletown. And people were so scared that they were yelling, they were screaming, they were honking, and then eventually I actually heard gunshots. And I wasn't very far from those, maybe a few hundred yards. That's kind of scary. Not to mention the fact that this whole time it's getting darker, the glow's getting brighter, and off in the distance, almost all those homes, as far as I know, actually, I'm gonna assume, forgive me, I'm gonna make an assumption here, they're all on propane. You start hearing those boom, there goes the propane tank. And then a few minutes later, boom, there goes another one. And they're getting closer and closer and closer. So at some point, I forget what time of the night it was, we decided to leave. And by then, all the traffic cleared out. And we'd heard on the scanner, a part of it was because they'd realized, hey, we need to shut down incoming traffic and just let everybody go. Because people need to get out of here. After that, I spent the next week volunteering at a donation center, sorting stuff, boxing stuff, getting it all prepped up. And then we were one of the first crews. I say crews because there was about 6 different trucks. I believe I have a video on here of us actually departing, all with really big trailers full of clothing, pet food, baby food, all those different supplies. We were one of the first to get it up in there. And then every fire there since, I've been somewhat of a part of it. This time I haven't spent so much time volunteering except for pulling a guy out here and pulling somebody out there. And doing my best to inform people. That's what I'm doing on this one. I'm just trying to cover it. But something has to change. Something's got to change. What is that? I don't know. But again, I'm planting seeds of what I've learned and what I know and what I've overheard. And I'm hoping that I can influence some people to try and educate themselves and try and just work together to find a solution for this. And I know the solution is not cutting funding. It's moving the funding over to other areas, or California is going to be hurting. And actually, as I say that, I hesitate to say California because it's not limited to just California. If you go to Cal Topo and zoom out, it almost looks like the whole world is on fire. I heard a rumor of fires up in Siberia. Again, unconfirmed, haven't seen it myself. But if you go to Cal Topo and go to active fire and zoom way out, it'll show you the whole Earth, the whole globe. And there's a lot of red spots. Stuff is going to change. Something needs to happen. And I'm doing my best to bring you some information that I've learned and seen. And after seeing the number of homes that are just leveled, most of them were just a chimney and a foundation and a pile of ash. You could see somebody's, the remains, the skeleton of a clothing washer or dishwasher because they're metal. A kid's wagon, somebody's firearms, a china collection that is now laying on the ground, broken and in pieces. It's saddening. It's heartbreaking. Again, the only thing keeping me going is the flood of thank yous for the information. And I'm glad I can do it. And it's supporters like you guys on Patreon and the few that have given me money through PayPal that are keeping it going. Because it's not cheap to drive around. Today, one of the cops finally noticed that, hey, you got a lot of down trees up in there. I said, I know. That's why I have a chainsaw chain and I'm driving a diesel truck in case it falls down. He goes, that's a really good point. A lot of the other reporters I've seen, they're all on little like Ford Focus and little cars. Those guys are, to me, is it naive or is it stupid? I'm going to go with kind of naive that they don't know. I wouldn't want to be in there in a little car. If a tree falls, I don't want to get stuck. I don't want to be stranded. Especially what if there's a flare-up, like I was talking about earlier, like in St. Helena, where these little flare-ups get into a tree, or the ember gets the tree and ignites it and burns it. I don't want to be near that. If a tree falls and blocks my path, you bet your bottom I'm going to cut that tree down. I'm going to drag it out of my way and I'm gone. So, for low, bye-bye. The other thing that's nice about these radios is I mentioned the transmit dual receive function. In an emergency situation, if you are interested in radios, I have two videos. There's one, just a general video that I made when I was camping, but then there's also a 2-hour, I think it is, live stream I did with a licensed ham operator. One of the things that I learned that is in an emergency, life-threatening situation, not flat tire situation, it's legal to call out on these radios. So if I'm turned into, say, CAL FIRE or Sonoma County Sheriff or Napa County Sheriff, and I am in trouble, it is perfectly legal to key this mic and say my position and say I need help. Perfectly legal. So maybe that's something you should consider checking out. I've recommended to several of my friends that, scanner apps are great, but maybe consider getting a radio, because if these cell phone towers go down, I'm pointing at my cell phone as if you can see it. The towers go down, how else are you going to communicate? I was able to get a FCC GMRS license for $70. Yeah, the radios, these are important. I don't have my ham license. I only have the GMRS license, but that still allows me an external antenna and 50 watts. That's a lot. It only takes 25 watts to reach the International Space Station. And how high up are they? They're way up there. So, now, with that said though, that's line of sight. This isn't going to go through Mount St. Helena and pick up my uncle on the other side, I have to hit a repeater. To hit the repeater, unfortunately, with a GMRS license, there's very few repeaters. But with a basic ham license, you can hit those repeaters and you can cover the entire world. I'm not talking about just Santa Rosa. I mean the whole world. So, excuse me. I have been drinking bubble water. I'm going to be actively working on my ham license. I've used the analogy. I've probably used it way too much. Spare tire analogy. It's better to have it and not need it. It's kind of like a Band-Aid, Kleenex. You hope you never need them, but when you want them, they're good to have, right? These are invaluable. Baofeng radios are not that expensive. Some people talk down about them because they're knockoff radios, but you know what? I'm not that serious into these radios that I'm going to be talking all over the world. So right now, yeah, I went on Amazon. I think we spent 120 bucks. We got 2 of these with 2 different kinds of antennas, dual batteries, belt clip, different kinds of microphones, all kinds of gizmos for like 120, 130 bucks. They're not that expensive. So maybe consider having one of these that you can communicate. I've got a friend down the street, Johnson, if you're watching, that bought one because I told him, hey, you know, if cell phones go down, I can still talk to you. I was, let's see, I think it was Friday night or Saturday night. We had 3 fires break out not too far from me, all really close together within less than an hour. Seemed awfully suspicious, awfully suspicious. So again, we can communicate, and if stuff really hits the fan, these are good to have. Let's see, catching up on the chat. He's got his license. Oh yeah, in the middle of Alaska, yeah, I wouldn't say kind of important. I would say really important. But again, you can get an FCC GMRS license for $70. It's good for 10 years, and it works for your whole family. It's a blanket coverage. It works for your whole family. Or I don't own them, but I've heard about rugged radios. I don't know how that's spelled or what they are, but apparently when you buy those, somehow you're covered under their license. And those radios are fairly powerful. I believe that their car mount one is 50 watts. So you don't need to spend the $70 I did. You just buy the radio. Just some information. Again, if you want to know more about radios, I'm not going to ramble on about them. Check out my live stream a few ago, and it's quite obvious. In the thumbnail is a pile of radios. You can't miss it. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey going from the August complex fire to the glass complex fire. And I just pray that this rain that I keep seeing on the weather report, was it 30% chance starting Thursday for like 5 days? I just pray, please. We're all so sick of fire. We're all so done with fire. But there's next year, and what are we going to do? So again, put some water on that seed, because if not, it might be your house that's next. I pray it's not my house, but it could be. I live in the middle of Windsor. Doesn't mean I'm exempt, though. Not at all. The glass fire originally started in St. Helena, and then an ember got carried up over into Santa Rosa and landed and started that on fire also. And the next thing you know, they're all spreading in different directions, and they all merge into one, and then you have a complex fire. So you have multiple fires burning together, or separately merging into one big fire, complex fire. Rain dance time. Absolutely. Yes, let's do one. If you have a link to what's a good one, I'm all for it. Throw it in the comments, because I've never done a rain dance, but I'll do one now. Let's see here. These would have been very helpful in 2017 mess. Yes, the radios are handy. All this stuff is handy. We live in one of the rare parts of the planet. It's truly physically cut off from the rest of the world. I'm reading the comments. Sorry. By boat or plane. So do you have like a clearing or something that you can move into? Like hypothetically, so one family member lives near, that I was talking about, lives near Middletown. They're fortunate enough that they live on like 4 or 5 acres, and the very middle of it, they have a clearing that's several hundred feet wide by several hundred, or 100, 200 yards long. That hypothetically, if the fire came through, they do have Nomex, they could get into the middle of that and stand a chance of the fire going around them. Granted, it's going to get hot, but they stand a chance. So do you have something similar like that? That would be what if I lived out there, I'd want a go-to spot. Maybe it's a pond. I don't know, but I'd want somewhere I could go to escape. So um, again, this live stream was not really well planned out. I just realized today that I haven't come to you and spoken with you in a long time now, and I want to get back into that. But I'm also trying to cover all of this stuff. So the blessing behind all this, though, is the flood of positive messages and the meeting of new people, exchanging messages with people that I've never seen in my life. I just wish that COVID hadn't happened, because I tend to stand out, and they'd be able to recognize me and say hi, and I like to meet people. I'm a social butterfly. I'm not the type to approach you in the Safeway frozen aisle. I know one of you heard that line tonight. I'm not the type to approach like that. But if you come up to me and say, hey, how's it going? I watched you on YouTube, or I watched you on Facebook, I will engage with you. I will talk with you. I'm a chatty Cathy when it comes to that. I mean, I've been rambling on for an hour and 1 minute and 20 seconds so far. Just rambling. I like to talk. I like to meet people. So if you're new here, please consider subscribing. If you're local, please consider reaching out. I love to meet new people. I love to talk to new people. I also like new perspective. If you feel differently about forest management or the mismanagement, I'm all ears. Bring it up. Let's chat. If you know better building technology that's more flame resistant, let's chat. I want to know. I want your opinions. If you haven't, if you're against selective logging or clear cutting, let's talk about why. I don't know everything, but I'd like to know more. With knowledge comes power. With knowledge comes safety too, right? I didn't know about Nomex 3A clothing until recently. I knew firemen wore specific clothing, but I'd never heard of Nomex 3A clothing. But this is what we bought. My partner and I, we bought a shirt each and a pair of pants each, and it was almost $700. And this isn't necessarily as thick as we should have, but this is the thickest we could afford, considering we're not fire personnel. Now, hey, what's up, Dylan? With that said, if you are interested in training for fire, it is available. I recently discovered that the Forest Service offers a class called Basic 32. It's a 32-hour class that's free of charge, and you get a red card when you're done. So they're going to train you about fire basics and safety. I wouldn't say, I don't know the level that they train you, but I know it's free, and you're going to learn some information about how to fight fire, how to be around fire, the different fire gear and whatnot, and it's free. Why not take it? Even if you live in city limits, I don't plan to ever be a fireman. I don't ever plan to ride on a fire truck and run a hose. But hypothetically, if the situation arrives and I am able to help or needed to help, I'm going to help. But if I don't know that stuff, I'm not an asset. I'm a burden. I don't want to be a burden. I want to be an asset. So I already reached out to the Forest Service and sent them a message like 3 weeks ago, but it's probably buried in a million emails and probably the super low priority for them, but I'm going to take it. Once the fires calm back down, I'll probably contact them again and find out when the next one is. The last one I was able to find on a schedule was back in April. I believe it was in Chico. Fine. I'll pay for my own transportation. Excuse me. I'll pay for my own hotel, my own food. I want the training. If somebody knows about if CAL FIRE offers that too, I'm all ears. I want to take it. I want to know it all. In this day and age in California, I think it's invaluable information. So again, I guess I could say I'm pleading with you to learn about what's going on and ways that we can solve these and work together. And maybe let's reach out to our politicians and say, hey, maybe it's time to start making this a priority. Maybe it's time to start thinking about getting rid of this this mindset, if you will, allow me, that smoke from a prescribed burn is an unnecessary nuisance. I think that's ridiculous. Well, again, I don't like the idea of clear cutting. I'm not like the idea of logging, but at the same time, it's necessary. It's a necessary part. It needs to be done. Somewhere I have, and I will find, and I will post the pictures. I found some from around the early 1900s, I'd say 1920, and then it was taken again in the 90s, looking the exact same direction. Granted, totally different cameras, but looking in this from the same spot, looking in the same direction, and the contrast between the two is extreme. Again, parts of the forest would burn, but then put itself out. And then another part would burn and put itself out. So when a fire broke out, it wasn't this massive 4 million acres in a year. No. Another thing I didn't know about is that when the European settlers started coming around and taking their covered wagons across the country, those little tracks that the wagons created, the pathways that the hoofs created, those are fire breaks. Those broke the natural paths of fire that it would normally take. So let's say a grassland, a fire burning through it. If you have a horse that's, or an active pathway, because we didn't have roads, we had, dirt roadways. We broke nature's natural paths. Indians used to light fires and burn all that stuff. But when European settlers came in, things started to go downhill. If you're curious about it, definitely check out and learn about the Great Fire of, I think it's 1910. It burned from Washington to I forget where it was, Montana or something, real fast. Forgive me, so much information, it's hard for me to remember all the details. But the Great Fire changed our minds, and I think for the wrong way. We need to learn to manage fire and manage fire, and consider it a necessary part of our life is prescribed burns and allow them to happen. So with that said, I'm going to say I miss you all, and I will be back on soon. We still have a ton of content coming out. We have a bunch of videos that we recorded before the fires broke out. On the very west side of the Mendocino National Forest, we found some epic camping sites. I pray they didn't burn. They will be coming to you soon. We have a video that we're kind of not arguing, disputing, which is the next priority, because we did an interview with the which you probably have seen on the last couple of videos, with the gentleman that was dropping the fire starting balls from the helicopter. We have a long form interview with that, but also while they were off briefing, they allowed us to not enter the helicopter, but to film whatever we want, take pictures of whatever we want. So I did a vlog there. I also did a vlog inside of a bulldozer that had been on the front lines and had retardant on it. They allowed me to go inside. He pointed a bunch of stuff out. Guy wasn't real keen on being on camera. But like, can I go in there? I like being on camera. He let me go inside. I did a vlog inside that. We have a fireman that I think he was a 20-year veteran from originally from Oklahoma, but was living in Colorado. He allowed us to put a GoPro inside the bulldozer when he operated it for his first time. The guy was giddy like a child, just like a little kid operating a bulldozer for his first time. That'll be coming to you soon. So you'll still be seeing some fire content, but you'll be seeing some more positive fire content coming, and we're going to be getting back into dispersed camping videos and locations, so stay tuned. I am working very hard with the Mendocino National Forest to get them to acknowledge that they need to let us back in there. I don't know about you, but I haven't seen anything other than what they're doing on Facebook with live streams. Here's a map. Here's what happened. Here's why we won't let you in here. Here's a fire. That's not content to me. So it's been a week and a half. I haven't heard from them since I sent them a very, we'll just say, persuasive letter. And then just yesterday I wrote them back saying I'd expected to hear back from you. So tomorrow they're going to be getting a nice little call from me. I'll start off polite, but I know my rights, and I consider the Mendocino National Forest to be my second home. My second home is still on fire. I want to know what's going on, and I'm sure you want to know what's going on too. How much of it has burned? Again, you see that yellow map of if it's burned in here. We don't know what those, out of all those dispersed sites that I have available on Patreon, how many have actually burned and how many are still there. I want to know. And I think you and I have the right to know. And I'm going to do my best to get them to let me in there. And because of you guys, I'm going to be able to do it. So stay tuned. Again, I really miss you guys, and I will be back on, I promise, on a regular basis again real soon. I would encourage you, if you're curious at all about the glass fire, the glass complex fire. I just released a video last night. The rattlesnake memorial fire video, what do you call it, documentary, if you will, we released. That's a really good video. Unfortunately, it burned 2 weeks after we were there. So you'll be seeing all of that stuff coming up. So there are a lot of maps, but the one that I swear by is caltopo.com, and it's updated every 12 hours. And not only that, if you zoom in, they will give you a date and a time in which that hotspot was updated. And then again, if you go over and click on, let's see, deselect the fire activity and select fire history, you can see where fire has burned throughout everywhere. The overlays, it'll give you the name of the fire and the date in which it burned. I swear by CalTopo now. I've stopped checking Windy. I barely ever check CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE gives me the containment levels, but really a containment level really only tells you how much bulldozer line or dozer line or containment around the fire they have. It doesn't tell you how much of the fire is actively burning or been put out. So the most relevant information to me is where is it actively burning. So caltopo.com. Can't speak highly enough about it. Check out the radio live stream if you're curious about radios, because remember, I think we're all becoming way too dependent on these little things. You know, we've talked about it before on past live streams. That I don't have one here. You know, Gaia's great, Avenza's great, Onyx Hunt's great, but if your battery dies and you're in the woods, what are you going to do? If you can't read a paper map, what are you going to do? I think it's time we start remembering the old school ways, which is going to be handheld radios and paper maps. So with that said, I'm going to remind you I miss you, and I'll be back soon, I promise. Stay tuned for more content. I would, if you want to see the still images that I do, this live stream, I did put in a link to my 500px account where you can see all the pictures I took from the August Complex fire, the glass fire, some of my light paint. So some of my personal pictures that I really liked from nature to light painting. Feel free to check them out. There's no cost to check them out. If you want to support this channel, Patreon is a great way to do it, or reach out to me through PayPal. Without that support, I can't bring this content to you as far as the fires go. I love camping, and I'm going to continue to bring you that content, but when it comes to the fires, it is not cheap for me to be out doing this. Like I said, this was really expensive. Driving the truck, it now needs an oil change. That's $150. A tank of gas, $150. So I would encourage you to please check out my Patreon. If you like that fire content, send me a positive word of encouragement. Check it out. Support me the best you can. I'll do everything I can. Again, those that are patrons, it's because of you guys that I have been able to bring as much content as I have. So with that all said, I'll see you again soon. I miss you. Bye-bye.